Hey everybody, it's Darius Brockett here, and the first official college football playoffs drop. So I decided to try my hand at a new series here called If I Were the Committee. So as we know, like I said, the first initial rankings dropped, and I'm going to have some friends join the show. And as you see, one of them now is my good friend who I work with, Anthony McBarnette, also known as AMAC. And first, I want to say thank you for your time, AMAC. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is like what everybody's been waiting for in this new era of
So
college football. So, yeah, let's
I
talk
think
about it.
everybody's been excited, dude. Like, what it's 12 teams. Everyone has a chance. And
Mhm.
I don't think this is what we all expected this to look like. And now it's very interesting now that the rankings have officially dropped. So for everyone who doesn't know, Oregon came in at one, Ohio State's two, Georgia's three, Miami's four, Texas five, Penn State six, Tennessee seven, Indiana eight, BYU nine, 10 is Notre Dame. Jesus Christ, I almost messed that up. 11 Alabama, 12 Boise State, but that's not how it officially looks when we see the projected brackets. So
Yeah.
just naming that top 12, how did you interpret that? How did you feel about the committee?
Nothing like super alarming. I think we talked about it today on my show a little bit. I think people were kind of they could see they could see Penn State being a little further back, maybe behind Tennessee. Tennessee had that good win against Alabama, and then also Indiana being undefeated. They could see them being a little bit higher, maybe even above Penn State, but nothing that jumps off the page that's like too egregious or too bad, in my opinion.
All right. So the projected playoff bracket, we finally got to see what this will look like. We already know the four conference champions automatic in, get a bye, right? Then you have everything else is at large, minus your one committed group of five. Whoever wins group the best team out of that group of five. Let's I want to dive into BYU real quick. BYU's at four,
Yeah.
but you have Boise State at 12. Is there a problem with that when you think of Boise State one loss team, BYU undefeated, but is Boise State the better team?
Yeah, I think most people would say so. Let me pull up BYU's schedule though. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I think that likely if BYU doesn't run the table, I think that they're definitely going to like Boise State's going to get that edge because they're only Boise State's only three spots behind them. BYU at nine, Boise at 12. So if I mean, but Boise State also has to get to their conference championship and probably play UNLV again, which was a good matchup their first time. So I think that that's an interesting one. I think both of those teams can't lose another game in order to solidify their spot. And if they do lose another game, depending on when they lose it, of course, who they lose it to, then they're starting to mess around with, their chances. I think those affect their chances drastically to make the CFP. And there was also another one that I overlooked too.
Tell me
So
about it.
yeah, Ohio State and Georgia, I think is kind of
I
like,
want to get there. I
yeah,
want to
okay,
get
we can
there.
we can table it now, but
Oh
that's
no,
one
no, we're
that
going to dive right now. We're going to
yeah.
dive right now. So
Hmm.
you mentioned two teams who have a loss on their record,
Hmm.
and you have only a small handful of teams undefeated. One of those undefeated teams is Indiana, but
Hmm.
Indiana's ninth, but they are averaging 33 points a game. But like, if you were the committee, what would you value? Do you value wins? Like, is that something you take into account? Because if that's the case, it should be almost every undefeated team should go in at that one, two, three, four spot, minus the conference championship spots.
Hmm.
Like, so where do you stand? Because as soon as you said it, that's exactly where I wanted to go. Like,
Hmm.
how do you look at it when if you were the committee and you have to look at Indiana, Ohio State, from the Big Ten perspective, and then
Yeah.
Georgia, yeah, you're leading your conference, but Texas A&M is also one of the best teams in the SEC as well.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing because it's part of me pities Indiana because like they're playing so well and they probably they haven't played an incredibly tough schedule, but out of everyone in the Big Ten, I mean Ohio State lost to Oregon, but they've been handling teams with I think they have the largest uh point differential in the Big Ten. Again, their schedule isn't as hard, but if you put a Michigan on that helmet, if you put Ohio State on that helmet, some things that I hear a lot is that that schedule wouldn't matter. Their quality of wins would matter, and they would be higher in that conversation. That being said, I think if Indiana they play Ohio State in what is that 2 or 3 weeks on November 23rd. If they can, they don't even have to beat Ohio State. If they can hang around with Ohio State, I think that that gives them that team a lot more value. But as it is now, you can kind of tell how the brands are playing into Indiana being undefeated, but being ninth. Wait, what is it?
They have them slated. If this was the playoffs, they are ninth, but they are ranked eighth.
Yeah.
So obviously
So
the seeding is going to be way different than rankings.
yeah,
But the
yeah.
fact that they would have to play in a first round right now, again,
Hmm.
makes sense because Oregon, but like Ohio State, you have Ohio State over them as the
Yeah.
number two best team in the country.
Yeah, and then Ohio State over Georgia too. I think that that has a that you kind of see where maybe some biases are peeking through because
I'll call it. I'll be the martyr on this and say brand bias has taken account into a
yeah,
lot of this because
yeah,
BYU sitting at ninth being undefeated.
hmm
Again, I get Oregon. You're in the Big Ten. You deserve the one spot. You're clearly the best team in the country. Clearly the best team if the CFP was to start today. But Indiana, at the way that they're winning, Mr.
yeah,
Google Kirk Signetti has always said it. Like they
hmm
don't care. But I would take this as disrespect if I'm Indiana at some point. And then even Georgia. Like you got these two teams. Didn't say they weren't good, but ranked over an undefeated team. I don't think the committee looked at the wins and losses equally. Like,
yeah,
do you think that plays a part into that? Like
yeah,
wins and losses weren't equal.
yeah. Specifically with Indiana, just because of the way that they're winning. Again, they don't have any like blowout wins over teams that we would consider like sniffing around the top 25. I mean, that Nebraska win was incredible. The recent Michigan State win was incredible.
I agree.
Um, but there's no Ohio State beating Penn State. Like there's none of that on their schedule. But I will also say I'm not too sold on Penn State either. Like I don't know how quality of a win that was for Ohio State. Penn State's a great team, but I don't know if they're that elite level team that it seems like the committee's giving them credit for. So um, yeah, definitely some disrespect with Indiana. I hope that it doesn't cost them further down the line. Like, let's say they lose to Ohio State and may have a chance to somehow get back into the Big Ten championship game because Ohio State slips up again. Just a random thought. If they go ahead and lose to Oregon in the championship game, Indiana, how does that play in fact? These are all hypotheticals, and this is why we love talking about it. But if you're Indiana, I think you should think about these things because it could, there's room to slip up on your schedule. There is.
There's definitely room to slip up, and I think they'll be treated very unfairly. But I also want to talk about the conference bias. It
Mm-hmm.
it kind of looks like that way. So when you look into it, one ACC team, one Big 12 team, but
Yeah.
ACC has five teams in the top 25 versus the second best that has the most in there is the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Big 10 only has four. Uh, Big 12 only has about what three teams in.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a chance that all the confirmation and the what all the big wigs have said that the SEC and the Big 10 will get four teams in? Are we kind of conceding to that already?
Yeah, I was kind of talking with the host of my Big Ten This Morning show on Sirius XM about that early. I think right now the best chance that the Big 12 or the ACC has of getting two teams in is Miami making a championship game and losing, and BYU making a championship game and losing. And that would have to be to either SM. That would have to be to SMU in the ACC, and then Iowa State in the Big 12. If those two teams run the table, Miami and Miami and BYU, it's looking very likely that they're
That's
only going to
weak.
get one team each end, which is More so for the Big 12, even in the ACC. I definitely seen like a lot of great things from SMU. I guess some more so for the ACC than for the Big 12. I think that would be um, that'd be pretty devastating. I think that Clemson lost to Louisville last weekend. That really hurt too. Like if you just had Clemson in Miami and then SMU continued to play well and they somehow didn't find their way, you could possibly have a hard argument for SMU being a third team in if Clemson happened to be Miami in the championship game. But now with that loss to Clemson, it's like SMU is your last hope to getting two teams in the ACC.
I sort of agree. I still think the ACC can get three in, but here's
Mm-hmm.
why. I
Mm-hmm.
We have to look at the SEC scheduling. The SEC still has Georgia and Tennessee who have to go up against each other. Texas
Mm-hmm.
A&M still has a couple of teams that have to play. And Texas A&M, like I mentioned, was the number 14 team, so they're part of the first two out. So
Mm-hmm.
the SEC, and then you have LSU, Alabama this weekend. So there's games that still have to be sorted out within the SEC, which
Yeah.
it bolsters them, but at the same time, if I were the committee, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that hinders them. I don't think the committee,
They chew each other out.
yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that was the problem that I've had when we first started watching the season unveil is that these teams are going to eat each other and cannibalize, but it seems like it's only going to make their case better where they can force a 9-3 team in over a one
Yeah.
loss ACC, which I think is unfair.
Yeah, that
Like
would
if
be
you were
crazy.
in that moment, is that are we looking for the best teams or the most deserving teams? And I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
But like, are you looking for the best 12 or the most deserving 12?
See, this is, I think this takes us back to like the Alabama and Texas over Florida State last year, that whole argument. And I was always a component for Florida State. And my reasoning was once you get on the field, you just never know. Because this was the same Alabama team that we saw in the beginning of the year, this last year's team we
That
saw in
is
the
true.
beginning of the year. And we were just like, oh, this team is not, I don't know what Nick Saban has going on with these guys. Like, this is just not it. And then we saw how things turned around. Granted, that Florida State team, they lost their quarterback. Um, and, they just didn't have the same schedule that Alabama did. But um, I think that's an interesting point, specifically with the SEC, because I think being a Big Ten guy, just
You are
working in the
very
Big
Big
Ten,
Ten.
yeah, and it pains me. The SEC is definitely the strongest conference this year,
Without a
and
doubt, 100%.
the deepest conference this year. I think that bias kind of reigns true. It's no longer a bias specific to this year. So, how does the committee look at a 9-3, maybe like Alabama team, or a 9-3 Tennessee team versus a two-loss SMU or uh, 2 1-loss ACC team? Oh, that'd be interesting.
It's one of those things where you look at it and it goes, can you lose and still be considered great? And I feel like the SEC is one of the only conferences that get that because of the additions of Texas. And I would say Oklahoma, but they've had a down year this year. So I'll just throw them away. But like, even Ole Miss still is in consideration for the college football playoffs with the teams that they have to play. I don't think that the committee truly values winning as much as I think they said they would. Like Ward
Mm-hmm.
Manuel and that committee, like they've come out and said, we want the best teams. We want the most best. We want the best 25, and we'll narrow it down to the best 12 with the conference championships getting the bye weeks. And it seems like just off this list alone, again, first week, next week, you could see Tennessee get blown out by 40. You could see Indiana win by 52. You can see Miami lose. Anybody can lose any given Saturday. But it seems that like in these moments, they are just they copied almost what the AP poll had, copy paste.
Yeah,
It's
pretty
like it's
much.
more so they were just like, let's get the first one out and then we rework it and retool it next week. I want to go to the independent circuit. Obviously, Notre Dame is where I'm talking at. Number
Mm-hmm.
10. You're number 10 in the rankings, you're number 10 in the playoffs. How bad is that one loss, or does that one loss even matter to Northern Illinois? Like, it doesn't matter now. Now that they know that they're 10, and they just know that hey, as long as we win, everything else
Yeah.
above us will sort itself out.
Yeah, I think that I'm pulling up their schedule now. I think that definitely hurt them. Because they still have a USC team that I think is really good on their schedule, and we'll see how that Army game turns out. But you make it so that you have no wiggle room left, and then there's no conference championship for you either. So it's
Are they
you. I,
saved by not having a conference championship? Do you think they're
it de-
safe?
it depends. It depends. Like if they it like hindsight would always be 2020. Like if they went out, of course, yeah, that's a beautiful thing that they don't have a conference championship. But if they lose to USC, at USC too, it's in California, or if they slip up and lose to Army, now you're putting it completely in the committee's hand. And maybe that ACC bid that we were talking about when you were talking about those three ACC teams, maybe that comes from Notre Dame. You know what I mean? So we'll see how that goes. But
When is Notre Dame going to get in the ACC? You're in the ACC and everything else but football.
yeah,
Are you like what is the deal? Do you, are they like I said, not playing in this conference championship? At least for now, being at 10, it's almost like it's going to help them. But their schedule, when you look at it, it's not that good. Like if you
yeah,
run it down, Texas A&M, you're top 25. Navy, you beat them, they were top 25. And Army, cool, that's three. So it looks fine on that moment. But that back half, Florida State 1-8, Virginia, what 3-6?
mm,
USC, obviously, they're going through a difficult time. It's almost as if Notre Dame can almost kick their feet up and just go, we could just coast our way through,
yeah,
our head down. They're like the kid, as long as like the quiet kid in school is like, if no one sees me, they can't call on my name. And it's like they have the easiest ride, in my opinion, to getting into the college football playoffs. Now, where they rank, wouldn't know, but it seems like Notre Dame has the easiest path because of not having that conference championship.
yeah. I mean, I'm guess I'm just more so not sold on them just yet. They've had some good wins, but they've all like the Northern Illinois loss was pretty bad, and then a kind of competitive Louisville game, and a couple Miami team, Miami of Ohio team that they kind of stuck in and around with them for a while in that game before they finished them off and late in the game. Yeah, I guess I'm just not too sold on Notre Dame just yet. But to your point, yeah, definitely an easy schedule if they can take care of business. But I can definitely see like a slip up against USC. But USC has always also been down and just changed their quarterback. So we'll see how that plays out.
We'll definitely see how that plays out. Want to backtrack to conferences one more. Which conference is the most open conference? Like I know we've kind of sold Miami into the conference championship. But we haven't sold any team in the SEC yet. And
Yeah.
surprisingly, we even though Oregon's number one, we haven't even fully committed to them winning that Big Ten, even though they were very hyped to win it this year. As the season played out, they started off slow. We haven't crowned anybody yet, except what it looks to be Miami as like a team who can win their conference and pin your name into that moment. So what conference do you think is the most open, I should say?
In terms of with the team that's going to win, or in terms of just like a team making it there.
Both. A team that has a wide open conference to get a
Mhm.
conference championship, winning they're in.
Yeah, I think that Oregon, their schedule is set up pretty nice for them to, finish undefeated. Maryland, Wisconsin, and Washington, like they should be able to handle those teams, especially how they've been playing as of late. They should be able to handle those teams pretty well. Um, but yeah, the SEC, that's flip a coin, and then you're gonna have to go through. I don't know the tiebreaker scenario for the SEC, but I think
We're
they're
gonna
gonna
have to
have to
look
start.
into it at some point. Like
Yeah, they're gonna have to look into that for real.
whoever beat
Because
Ole Miss, who beat South
yeah,
Carolina, who beat
they
Georgia.
may
Like,
they may come to flipping coins in that conference. But yeah, I think Oregon definitely will be there. Hopefully we get a rematch with Ohio State. Knock on wood, I think that'd be great. Give Ryan Day a chance to put those big game rumors to rest. Um, yeah, SEC is a toss up. It's so many, and that's the thing about the SEC, and it goes back to my point about the bias reigning
It
true.
just means more.
Yeah, I guess so this year. There's like you go like six deep into that conference, and those all look like college football playoff teams to me. Georgia, Texas A&M, they've kind of, but Texas A&M, I can see them as a college football playoff team.
One, two,
Tennessee,
three, four, five,
Texas,
six.
LSU,
Six
Ole
ranked
Miss,
teams.
and Alabama.
Seven,
I
Missouri.
yeah, I can see all these teams making it to a college football playoff and playing well. So yeah, the SEC is wide open. Uh,
I have a counterpoint.
mhm,
I think the SEC will close once Georgia and Tennessee plays. I think once
mhm,
that game is played on the field, we'll either know it'll either come down to a 4-team race or a 2-team race, and it'll just be Georgia and Texas.
mhm,
Alabama's made their mistakes, and they have to make it up immensely. Ole Miss looked really good last week against Arkansas, but we got to see them this week. We got to see how they look coming into this one. I think the SEC, as open as it is, I think it'll close this week very fast. Where we like we'll
So
know which 3 teams it's open to interpretation.
yeah. So do you think that so like if LSU lose, do you think that they're eliminated from the CFP?
Yes, and I think all right. Let's break this down. We're going to do this 3-1 in conference play. What are they? 6-2, 6-2 overall, right? So you lose to Alabama, who's already a inferior ranking team than you. Didn't say they were better. Didn't say you were
Hmm.
worse. Just based off that number next to your name, you are technically better, or you should be better than them. So
Hmm.
you lose that game, that'll ultimately drop you down even more. Alabama yet goes in as 11, but like you in your conference, you are the fourth best team, and in my eyes, you have one of the most improved teams, and you've given every team toe to toe games that come down to the wire. Losing to Alabama, I think, brings you down a peg to a same
Hmm.
team that lost to Vanderbilt. And this is not a slight on Vanderbilt. I want that to be known. Not a slight on Vanderbilt.
They're
But
playing
if you
some good
have to
ball.
but if you have to look at it from the eyes of the committee,
No,
you
I
go,
agree.
you lost to a team that lost to Vanderbilt that lost to Texas. So you how do you look at it in that metric? It's hard to easily just give in to that very fast. So I think it'll come. And then Georgia playing Tennessee this weekend, it'll easily like again, 2 of those teams that are ranked in that top 4 of that SEC will lose, and I think that will knock them out. And I think that'll be probably what opens the door to what the SEC what is going to eventually look like when it's all said and done. I think the conference that has the most confusing path is the Big 12 because of Iowa State, because of Kansas losing, and Kansas State losing. Colorado has life, which is something I don't think anybody was prepared for this year.
No,
I
yeah,
think we
no,
have to give credit to Coach Prime and what they're doing there to where I only had them at 6 games. 6 games was my ceiling for them.
yeah. And everybody was saying that was progress. 6 games.
It is progress. You're in the
Yeah,
bowl. But
yeah.
the fact that you are a one-loss conference champion, BYU's undefeated in conference play, but they if BYU loses, if Iowa State loses again, Kansas State, you already lost twice, so you're pretty much done unless anything like it's wide open. And yet BYU, you have it's yours. But I think if Colorado gets into the conference championship with BYU, I might put my money down on the Buffs.
Mm,
I can see the Buffs being in the college football playoffs this year, just off that technicality of conference champion automatic qualifier.
yeah. And I think that would be interesting too, especially like if BYU doesn't run the table. Now and this is why we had conference realignment. This is why we have this already talks about college football expansion, and this Super League talk. because if Colorado gets to that Big 12 championship and beats BYU, we're looking at Colorado now as a bid stealer, as a team with two losses on their schedule in the Big 12. We're looking at them like, oh, you're taking this Colorado team, you're giving them an automatic bid over a Tennessee team who lost two games or
But
a
isn't that
Georgia
why you
team who
love
lost.
college football?
Yeah.
That
I
this
mean,
is why
that's
you
a
play the games on the field.
yeah, this and I'm in agreement with you 100%. 100%. Like if Colorado goes and wins that conference championship, is the same thing we look at in college hoops. Like if
That's a
that team
strong
wins
win.
exactly if that team wins their conference, they're in the dance. And once you get to the dance, you know anything can happen. So I'm 100% in agreement with you there. But just playing devil's advocate and looking at it from these ads and conference commissioners, they're like, hey, no, Tennessee at two losses should be in over Colorado. Look who our two losses were to, or Georgia should be in with two losses. You know, look who our two losses were to. So yeah, that's when it gets interesting. It's like going back to what we were talking about earlier. Um, if that if BYU or Miami loses in their conference championship, we're talking about bid stealers, those teams being bid stealers for the Big Ten and the SEC.
You can't penalize teams for making the conference championship and losing. I think that's the unfair part. But
Mm-hmm.
this is why we play the games. And I truly want to say thank you for joining me for this first episode. There's going to be many more. Obviously, I'm going to have you back on probably when we get into December and we get closer to this.
Yeah.
Obviously, being the first guest, this means a lot. So I want to say thank you. One last question. I know we're running out of time here. If you were the committee, is there a team you think is overlooked that's not in the 12 right now? That's 14 down.
Yeah, I would probably say SMU or Pitt. I think that those two specifically, they especially SMU, I've really fallen in love with how SMU has played, how well they played, and some
Made
of
the
the
quarterback
ways that
change and have not lost really since.
yeah, and they've looked good. Like they have some respectable dominant wins. So yeah, I hope that they can continue to perform well and make I mean a good win over Louisville. They got that loss to BYU, but we see how BYU is playing. I mean, not much saying here, but dominated Florida State, dominated TCU, big win over Stanford, a good win over Duke, and then recently just beat Pitt. And Pitt too. I would like to see Pitt, kind of run the table and see where they land. But those are my two teams, especially. I don't want to see one team out of the ACC make the champion or make the CFP. I don't think that would be given that conference is just due, but we'll see.
All right, A-Mac. Let people know where they can find you and follow you on socials. I'll put it somewhere around your face in the video. But let them know something real quick.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram at Anthony McBarnette, and then on Twitter at ant _major. Darius, I appreciate you having me, man. This was fun. I feel like I lost track of time here. It's
We
like,
definitely did. We definitely
yeah,
did.
yeah,
Because it's so much that we'll get off in a tangent. Let me slow down.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Again, like I said, I'll have you on again, and I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. I will get more guests as time goes on. First episode, and I think we did really good. So please, you guys, like, share, subscribe to the channel. If you guys want more of this, because I will do it anyway. You guys kind of don't have a choice. This is my YouTube channel. So if I were the committee every week, try to do Wednesday, try to do Thursday, I don't know.